Every now and then, you find a game that really makes you think. Games that make you feel for people that never existed, like Red Dead Redemption 2. A game that makes you wonder whether you made the right decisions, like Fallout New Vegas, or even a game that fully immerses you and makes you feel the things your characters feel, like A Way Out. However, today I'm not talking about any of those games. I'm talking about a game that will leave you staring at your screen once it ends. A game that will take you through an emotional roller coaster of happiness, sadness, and maybe even some nostalgia and existential dread. This game is Giant Sparrow's masterpiece, What Remains of Edith Finch. This is one of my favorite games of all time. One of the reasons this video took so long to upload is because I'm so scared of messing up or missing something in a game that I have so much love for. But I think it's finally time. So grab yourself something to eat and set up your phone like the iPad kid you are, and enjoy as I attempt to take you on this ride. We begin with a simple title screen that clears to show an unnamed character sitting on a ferry. We don't yet know where they're going, but we will. In their lap lies a notebook, scribbled out introductions strewn across its pages, while a drawing of a fantastical house stands proud at the top. We then hear our storyteller, Edith Finch, begin reading.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house.
We are then transported to a lush forest, with what appears to be the house drawn in the book off in the distance. It should be clear at this point, this is not a traditional game. This is almost as if you were playing a book, the writing on the pages lighting your way through the story. We are then taken to our first and near only choice in the game. Upon a tree lies a sign reading the Finches and a crossroads. You can take the upper path or the lower path, and there really is no consequence regardless. But if you're anything like me, you'll find yourself torn on which direction to go. After choosing, you will walk a little further down the path and soon be standing face to face with the house, while a beautiful orchestral stinger plays.
The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it.
The soundtrack really is one of the biggest highlights of this game. The melancholic sound makes you feel real emotions throughout.
I hope the key
We
might
walk
unlock
to the house,
door.
learning that of course,
didn't.
the key doesn't unlock the front door, forcing Edith to enter through the doggy door. Being inside, the house invokes a certain feeling, and I think Edith describes it perfectly.
Nothing in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth.
We see some environmental storytelling. Cans piled high reading cannery, and a dinner table set, but left to rot. Sitting next to it is a wheelchair. We learn this is Edith's great-grandma Edie's chair.
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great-Grandma Edie living in a nursing home. It was like a bomb had gone off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
We then see the doors have all been sealed up, now with peepholes drilled through them. Small plaques showing that the former inhabitants of these rooms are all dead.
And disappeared. Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes.
A looming sense of mystery falling over the player. We can look through the rooms, where Edith will give a small bit of information about the family members who formerly lived there.
My Grandpa Sam spent 7 years sharing a room with his dead brother, Calvin. As a kid, I just assumed every house had peepholes and sealed rooms you weren't allowed inside of. Molly always seemed like a girl I could imagine being friends with, if she hadn't died in 1947.
On the other side of the house, we find an opened and empty room. And here is where we finally see what the key unlocks.
I spent a lot of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room. I think my mom sometimes regretted not sealing it up.
The mysteries of this house.
Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him. Turns out, my mom was really good at keeping secrets. Now it was time to find out what my mom had been afraid of. Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan, but I had no idea what was behind that door. Just like I had no idea where all this was gonna lead.
We are now in the bedroom of a 10-year-old girl who died in 1947, Molly Finch. Inside, you will find dead plants across the floor, along with a map of the house on her desk, with a magnifying glass over her name. We see a small cloth hanging off a dresser with Molly's notebook on it. Upon reading it, we will experience her story.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner.
We begin at night, after Molly was sent to bed without food. She begins eating many things in her room, such as gerbil food, toothpaste, and what looks to be berries from a mistletoe, which is poisonous, although realistically probably wouldn't have killed her. Molly sees a bird outside of her window and turns into a cat and chases her across the outside of her home. Molly then turns into various predators, an owl eating rabbits, a shark, and finally some sort of tentacle monster that attacks and eats sailors on a ship before turning its sights on the Finch house, going through Molly's bathroom and under her bed. Molly, believing the monster is going to get her, writes this account in her diary before seemingly passing away that night. Edith states that she doesn't believe all that.
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
However, my first playthrough going in completely blind, I did believe there may be a monster in the home, mostly due to the loading gizmo having a striking resemblance to the monster during her hallucinations. This may have been an intentional red herring for the devs, but we'll get to that later. Right now, it's time to uncover the mysteries of the other family members.
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past.
Edie and Sven's room doesn't contain any of the traditional stories, so I'm gonna let you listen to Edith while in here, as she does a much better job than me.
I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room. We got along, and it was a good place to hide from my mom. When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't. One summer, they evacuated the island, but Edie refused to go. For a few weeks, she was a celebrity. I hadn't thought of myself as Edith Jr. for a long time. Edie gave a big interview about a mole man living under the Finch house. My mom was furious. Lewis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him. Her room was like a museum. For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan. On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind. But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea. Odin's daughter Edith, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery. His daughter Edith is already dreaming of a new Finch house. Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways. Even in her 90s, sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother.
As you can see, Edie loved telling stories and bending the truth, and the curse has followed the Finch family for generations. The next door reveals a pink bathroom with a book on the counter that can be interacted with to reveal yet another secret passage.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
The door takes us to an old dark room.
Sven gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down. From the paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me.
And following the passage further, we find the room of Sam and Calvin Finch. Calvin's side roped off, indicating that he had died.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin, and that he never talked about him. I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
We can go above the bed and see his story.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom, and he did. At Barbara's funeral, he swore he'd never be afraid again, and he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly. But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that.
Alvin, I'm not gonna tell you again.
Maybe if the wind hadn't picked up. And maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing. After the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room. Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
You've likely seen this scene before. I've seen the clip floating around on TikTok, but that could just be because I like the game. But it does seem fairly popular. It was one of my favorites on my first playthrough, but I'd yet to make any sort of connection to the overall message being conveyed. The story, however, is heart-wrenching. The delivery of the lines feel like they were truly written by a child coping with the loss of his brother, and it's truly hard, with how immersive this game is, to not feel anything. A bookshelf in the corner of the room reveals yet another passage. It's becoming a theme at this point. Edith saying something that caught my attention.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
We then reach Barbara's room.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star. I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
And pertaining to her earlier comment, it's here when I first realized it looked as if Edith may be pregnant. Barbara's story is told through a comic book. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of this one, and it seems Edith agrees.
Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
It's jarring with such a deep story to have this random, almost silly story. I don't, however, think it takes from the game, but rather develop Edie more.
Inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it the surprise ending of Barbara Finch.
The comic follows Barbara, a former child star known for her scream.
Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16,
As she
was
prepares for a
almost
convention where she will perform her once famous aforementioned scream, but she can't seem to get it right. Her boyfriend, Rick, trying unsuccessfully to coach her.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
When her dad cuts himself on a table saw, Barbara is now stuck watching her younger brother Walter instead of going to her convention. It's then when a radio broadcast cuts through.
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
A crash is heard in the basement, and this is where we learn that the music box next to the basement door contains a key to the basement.
Box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
Rick goes down, but after he doesn't return, Barbara goes down after him, finding his crutch on the floor and approaching the fridge.
Oh dear!
Oh!
Rick?
Barb, relax.
Barbara kicks Rick out and falls asleep, until Walter calls for her.
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah!
activity.
The Hookman sneaks up behind her.
Barbara turned, saw the Hookman, and was speechless. He was quite smashing.
Escaping through the secret passage we took earlier, she sneaks up on the intruder, knocking him off the balcony.
He wasn't moving.
She goes down after him, seeing he has disappeared when the doorbell rings. Monsters appear behind her, seemingly killing her and leaving only her ear in the music box.
Edie told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
I do believe, as the comic suggests, that Rick murdered Barbara. This comic is just a fantastical rendition of the story. But with that out of the way, it's time to get the key out of the music box and proceed to the basement.
It's funny. All those times I played with the music box and never found the basement key.
Entering the basement, we see Sven's old workshop. Continuing towards the fridge and opening it, we realize the secrets of this family run deeper than anyone would have expected. Edith's great-uncle Walter had been living here for her entire childhood. I've chosen not to do commentary on this one. This story was a big turning point for me during my first playthrough, and I simply won't do justice that the game hasn't already done.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30 years. On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week. But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane. Having a schedule, living for today. I always expected to be dead tomorrow. But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything. Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal. Almost friendly. And then one day, everything just stopped. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe it got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid. It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years. I'm done waiting. I have to leave while I still can. I know it's out there somewhere. Whatever killed Barbara and Molly and Calvin. Maybe this is all a mistake. But I need to stop living the same day, even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate all of it, especially the food. I don't mind if I only have a year left, or a month, or a single week. I'd be happy with one more day. I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here. I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me. Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter. But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same mistakes she made, trying to bury something that's still alive. Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe 2, I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself. and found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
This is when it hit me. The entire scene had me believing in the monster and the curse, only for it to be completely tossed aside. This is where it became clear. There is no supernatural force, and there is no monster. Just the crushing, unrelenting reality of death.
I don't know if I should even be writing this.
This reality becomes apparent in the stories that follow, and I feel this marks a turning point in the narrative.
Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me.
This is no longer about a curse.
But I thought you should know about your family.
In the stories that follow, while still maintaining some of the feel of the previous ones, will consistently be in the Reaper's shadow. From this point forward, I knew I wasn't watching stories. I was watching the last moments of a family.
I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
We leave the train tracks and proceed across a small beach, up to the family
Sven
cemetery.
built the house, but it was
Here we
easy
see
to design the
monuments
cemetery.
for all the family we've seen
Isn't enough
and all
to
we've
save
yet
us
to
like
see.
I did. I
It
get
seems
why
like
she
the
tried
devs
so hard
were
to protect
intentional
us.
here in this being a turning point. Edith's
never found
lines
Milton's
really
body,
cement my
so my mom
suspicions,
insisted we were putting
especially
up a
when she
monument,
confirms her
not a
pregnancy.
tombstone. If she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Climbing onto the roof, we enter a room, clearly that of an enthusiast hunter and photographer. A box in the corner is labeled K. We can find a desk with a map, camera, and wedding ring on the other side of the room. This one for Edith's grandpa Sam. This one is rough, just as a warning. It follows Sam on a trip with Dawn, Edith's mother. It's told through pictures, which I think is a very cool approach.
Dawn, I promise, you'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime. Perfect. Be careful.
It spends the whole time showing you this relationship between Dawn and her father. She takes pictures and eventually lines up to shoot her first deer. After taking the shot, Sam sets his camera on a timer to get the picture of his daughter's first deer. But that's not what it captures.
Always normal, Dawn. Just focus on the camera. Try not to think about.
Dad!
This one stung bad, and that's exactly what I think it was meant to do. And I hope this was a good example of how the stories no longer have the same feel.
Of all these stories, that's the one I wish most that my mom had told me.
We proceed through a small door into an attic crawl space, moving rapidly into our next story. This one about a baby named Gregory. Another warning here. This, while lighthearted in its depiction, is incredibly heavy.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it.
We play as Gregory, a baby playing in the bath. It starts very simple, him playing with a toy frog. After a short while, Gregory drops the frog, and we control it as it swims around the tub. Kay, Gregory's mother, comes to let the water out of the tub when she is distracted by a phone call from Sam Finch.
Hello? Sam, I told you I don't
The frog begins knocking toys into the water, followed by a bottle of bubble bath, before Kay returns and lets the water out of the tub. She is once again distracted by the phone call. We also hear Sam's concerns and guilt about Gregory through this note.
Maybe if I hadn't called that night.
The frog then jumps up, turning the water back on before we hear Kay leave the room.
About the world he saw.
The tub fills above Gregory's head, and we then swim through the water into the drain, where a bright light is shown. This one sits heavier with me than a lot of the others, as this is a very real and tragic situation.
Love, Sam.
Edith remains silent, further allowing for the gravity of what we've just witnessed to sink in. The bed directly adjacent to Gregory's holds yet another tale. This one of Edith's uncle, Gus. Dawn had written a poem that we can see at the foot of the bed. When we pick it up and read it,
a poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea.
We are taken to the beach in front of the house, where a wedding is taking place. Gus had expressed disdain for having a stepmother.
I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that
I now pronounce you husband and wife.
And in retaliation, flew his kite instead of joining the wedding. After everyone had entered the tent, Gus was left outside with his kite and forgotten about, while a storm blew in. We see the tent then leave its anchor and soar through the air.
I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam.
Before crashing head-on into Gus.
But I didn't. Until we found you.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
The sadness of this death comes from the fact that he wasn't a thought. There was little care for Gus until his body was discovered. Gus died alone and angry, crushed by the massive totem pole we saw toppled outside earlier. We can now head around and climb up a rock climbing wall. At the top, we can learn some small bits of information about Edith's mother, Dawn.
She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay. Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died. My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later. When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
After Edith's dad died, Dawn and her children, Milton, Louis, and Edith, returned. The house was again expanded. Walking through a small schoolroom, we can find and enter Milton's castle. On the top floor, we find a flip book. It seems obvious that Milton knew he was leaving, and had an idea of where he wanted to go. Now, it's no secret that Milton appears in Giant Sparrow's other game, The Unfinished Swan, which I have yet to play. My running theory is that Milton suffered from hallucinations of some kind, which will be further backed up later, and The Unfinished Swan may be the world he built in his dreams. But as I said, I haven't played the game, so this is purely speculation on my part. Leaving the castle, we take the stairs next to the schoolhouse up to Louis's room. His room filled with bright posters and some paraphernalia on his table. In the corner, on a desk, we find a box, Lewis's blood-stained hat, and a note from his psychologist. Lewis had been in therapy due to substance abuse, where upon becoming sober, realized his life wasn't interesting. Lewis began daydreaming, which I'm sure plenty of us have done at work. Small initially, but growing with each passing day. He soon had built an entire city in his mind. And went on to conquer more. Becoming more and more detached from reality, Lewis began forgetting to leave the cannery after his shifts.
Part of Lewis kept sailing on.
He soon realized he would rather be the version of himself he built in his imagination. He walks into the cannery, seeing himself working, and leaves the real version of himself behind.
Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder.
Lewis opens the door to his imagination, fully immersed and ready to permanently join the world he has built. He bends down his head and...
And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Lewis was seemingly killed by the fish cutter he used for work. Lewis's death marked the end for Dawn. She decided to leave the Finch house for good.
I wish you could have met him.
We're entering the final stages here. The end of the ride, so to speak. There's a lot to this story, best told through Edith. So I think it's best to let Edith tell it.
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder.
We go up to the final room and lay on the bed.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
The power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning, okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. For a while, I wandered. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the band came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it, but she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
And so, the courier who cheated death... Wait, no, wrong game. We'll get there. I'll keep the music, though. This game is heavy, and there really aren't a lot of other words for it. My first playthrough of this, I believe, was during COVID. I just wanted to play something, and it caught my eye. Little did I know I would be thinking about it almost 5 years later. I wouldn't say this game changed my life, but I will say it's come the closest. I'll spend a little bit of time here on some theories. I've seen tossed around a lot that everyone in the family has schizophrenia, which is interesting, and while I do think many of the family members suffer from something, it's probably not schizophrenia. Or at least not all schizophrenia. I also don't believe Edie is evil. I think she genuinely believed there was a curse on the family, and in a sense, there probably was. I spent an unhealthy amount of time thinking about what message to take from this game, and until recently, I hadn't thought about what I've taken from it now. I had it in my head for a while to make a video about mental health, living in the past, existential dread, and the monotony of life, that sort of thing. But decided that wasn't my place and wasn't for this channel. It's always interesting to me how fate, or in my personal belief, God, has a way of making it work. Because honestly, that's the message. This game is about those things. We see a family so consumed by their own mortality that it seems they go out of their way to meet it. We know little of these people but their deaths, so scared of a curse that in cases like Walter, they just sit around waiting for it to come take them. I think the house represents our own existential dread. The house just keeps growing as time continues, but it never grows in spirit, only size. When we enter the house, it's unsustainable. A representation of unchecked dwelling. As you dwell on your existence, your dread will grow until it consumes you, as it did every member of the family. The old house represents the past, always being out of reach, but still always being right there, just within view, and just close enough you can almost touch it. We look on the past with a longing for yesterday, for the good old days. But if you spend so much time looking at that house off the coast, you won't realize the good happening all around you. And this is all a matter of my meaningless opinion and speculation. But I think the curse is existential dread. And this story is a warning to what can happen if you only focus on the stories of the past and not enough about the life that you could be experiencing right now. The lesson to be learned is simple. Do not fear tomorrow. Look fondly on the past, but don't try to move your house there. And enjoy the life that you get to live right now. This video took forever, and while I really enjoyed making it, I'm glad I'm done making it. I just want to thank everybody for watching, and just spitballing here. You know, it's really easy to make a video about something you want to make when you don't care about the amount of people watching. So, to the 30 of you who actually made it this far and are listening to me, comment for a cookie.